So let me ask you, why do you think the richest man in the world wanted to buy the Washington Post?
Ah, yes, because his dedication to freedom of speech, of course. Because he knows, Jimmy, that democracy dies in darkness. Don't you love that? Don't you love that slogan?
So they had that slogan, Thomas. They had that slogan right above their editorial, which told us why Edward Snowden should be imprisoned.
Oh God.
They don't even care about irony. They're like Chris Hedges says, they just steal right out in the open now, and their irony is right in your face, and they don't care about it.
Yes, but there's also, I mean, here in DC, there is this kind of fever that has settled over the city of, everything is about Trump. There's this obsession with Trump. If you go on the Washington Post webpage, all five of, I mean, I haven't even looked at it today, but all five of the top most read stories will be about Trump.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that every day, and it has been like that for an entire year. And people have convinced themselves that he is a dictator.
Mm-hmm.
And that he is going to clamp down on the press. He is going to stop calling them names at some point and start throwing journalists in prison. That all of these terrible things are coming. That he is Hitler. This is commonplace in Washington D.C. And look, he scared me. I should say. I should put it in the past tense.
He couldn't even repeal Obamacare, Thomas.
I know. This is the thing now. He's totally incompetent. Turns out the guy's an imbecile.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were saying.
The main danger now is that Trump actually decides to figure out how to do this job. But he hasn't figured it out yet. But one of these days, I mean, let's say he just takes he takes a liking to it. He decides he wants to get stuff done as president. He doesn't want to just like swan around, and eat dinner with the prime minister of France anymore. He actually wants to get things done. That will be dangerous, because if he puts his mind to it, he might actually figure out how to do it. But as things stand right now, he doesn't have a fucking clue. Not a clue.
And so when people on the left and the center are screaming for impeachment to Trump, I always say, again, this is your knee-jerk emotional response that isn't thought through, because what do you want? You want an incompetent maniac, or do you want a competent maniac like Pence?
Yeah, well, Pence is competent. That's right. That's one of the, exactly. People haven't thought that through. But, I mean, Trump is bad news. All of this stuff about his connections with Russia, it's alarming. Although it doesn't require the kind of constant 3-alarm, launch the ICBMs kind of, state of emergency that we're constantly in here in Washington. But the other thing that really gets me that we have stopped talking about that I thought was really interesting. I mean, there's many interesting aspects to Trump that aren't being discussed or barely being discussed at all, but his holdings all over the world, his incredible, that he has this web of financial connections with everyone and everything. That's really interesting. I'm also, frankly, Jimmy, and you're there in Los Angeles, I'm fascinated by Trump as a kind of darker version of Ronald Reagan. When I was out there in LA, I went to the Reagan Library. You ever go to this?
Yes.
Up in Simi Valley?
I just lied. I didn't go there. I've never been there.
Okay. But it's like Reagan's presidency itself. It's very strong on this kind of Reader's Digest emotional thing, and very weak on the details. Very, very, very weak on the details. But that's, we remember when Reagan was elected, we were like, oh my God, there's an actor in the White House. And,
yeah.
And he really was, he did govern as a kind of myth maker, as a kind of, that really is how he governed. And Trump is also, I mean, we think of him as a real estate guy, but that's not really what he is. He is a product of the entertainment industry. And Trump as that is fascinating to me. Now, I haven't started writing about it yet myself because I'm just fucking sick of hearing about Donald Trump and just don't care about it. But there's this quality to the media's coverage of Trump that is there's just something wrong with it. And I'm sorry, I'm getting on to another article that I wrote recently here. That it's hard for me to put my finger on it. What is wrong with it? There's like the Washington Post ringing the alarm bells all day long. Every day there's a new emergency about Trump, and it just doesn't ring true for me. I wonder what you think about this.
Well, I'm happy that, you talk about the scary ties that Trump has with Russia or whatever. Whatever it takes to keep us out of World War III, I'm okay with it. If he doesn't want to start World War III with Putin because he owes him money, then I'm okay with that. Because right now, Donna Brazil and all the talking heads on TV are super okay with the World War III. In fact, they didn't call. You remember the first time they called Trump presidential on CNN and MSNBC? They did that when he bombed Syria.
When he bombed somebody. Yeah, when he bombed somebody. So that. By the way, that's one of the big themes here in Washington D.C. is that this guy is basically letting the empire fall apart. And frankly, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I don't really care. I'm shed no tears for 7 wars or whatever that we were doing, a year ago.
Yes, well, that's why a lot of people on the right said they voted for Trump because he was an anti-interventionist. A lot of libertarians who gave their vote to Trump, they liked the idea that he wanted to get out of the Middle East and he wanted to stop arming terrorists. And turns out he actually is doing that in Syria. And it turns out when
come on, we're going to see. I don't know if Trump is actually going to do anything that Trump also promised to bring back Glass-Steagall. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
I mean, it's like he made outrageous promises. And by the way, that was one of the things that I remember being quite astonished watching a Trump campaign rally on YouTube in which he criticized the campaign against Libya. Do you remember this, where we were just bombing the crap out of Libya and all these, and Trump said, look, all these people died and we think it's a great thing because no Americans died. Well, what about the people that lived there? And I thought that was like a kind of an amazing thing for an American politician to say.
Wow.
But, yeah, it blew my mind. But then I don't know if he ever repeated it. He just, it's like with Trump, it's like, he saw somebody say that on Facebook that day, thought he'd repeat it. Who knows if he really believed it? He's never said anything like that since. So you just don't know,
So let me ask you one more time about what do you think the effects of the richest predatory capitalist billionaire in the world owning the political newspaper of note in the United States? What do you think the effect of that is?
Well, the conventional wisdom here in D.C. is that he has saved the Washington Post. So they were seriously a couple of years ago when it was owned by the Graham family, and it was hurtling towards disaster. And I don't know if you're aware of this, Jimmy, but newspapers are basically done for in this country.
Yes.
I mean, I'm from Kansas City, the newspaper there, which we used to be very proud of, the Kansas City Star. Or you look at your LA Times out there. I mean, these were great newspapers once, the Chicago Tribune, and they're all just disasters now. They're just they're a shadow of their former selves. They can't afford to have bureaus in, the next town over,
right?
Let alone in Paris or something. It's tragic what's happened to them. And the only way that newspapers have found to survive in this awful era is by getting a billionaire to blow all sorts of money on them. So it's exactly the William Randolph Hearst model. Remember Citizen Kane?
Yes.
By the way, another interesting fact about Trump. No one ever talks about this, but if you ask me, this is a key to his personality. You know what his favorite movie is?
No.
Citizen Kane. Yes.
Do you think that's just like something he just says?
Yeah, probably. Maybe it just came across Facebook like everything else. But he's definitely taken one thing from it, which is, remember, lock her up? Remember the slogan? So do you remember in Citizen Kane where Kane is running for governor of New York and his main campaign promise is to throw his predecessor in prison? Do you remember this?
I forgot that part.
Yeah. And that clearly stuck with Trump. And he's like, wow, that's what you do when you're in politics. You promise to throw the other guy in jail.
I did not know that from that movie. I don't remember that. That's hilarious.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Yeah, no, I love that.
I used to watch it when I was younger. When I was in college, I would watch it like this endless loop. I would watch it again and again and again. Don't ask me why. But anyhow, that's the model for newspapers now. Is the same as the old model from 100 years ago. Get a rich guy and become that rich guy's mouthpiece. And so Bezos came into Washington and blew a huge amount of money on the Washington Post and built them a new fancy office building. Everybody's getting paid. There's no question about them going out of business. So their place in America is secure. But I want to give you, in the sense that they now have enough money to go on. But here's the thing, Jimmy. We're a country of 300 million people. And we basically have 3 newspapers that matter. And you know this as well as me. Newspapers still matter enormously in setting the agenda of what the rest of the media talks about. If it's not in the New York Times, it's not going to be on CNN or MSNBC, or they won't even know about it because they all read the New York Times and that's where they get everything. But the only papers that matter are them, the Post, and the Wall Street Journal. And there's nothing else. And all 3 of them are located, of course, on the East Coast, within 500 miles of each other. And basically there's this. So Washington, D.C., by the way, is awash with journalists. I used to live in the district proper. I used to work for the Wall Street Journal. And across the street from me was another guy that worked for the Journal. And catty corner was a woman that worked for the Washington Post. And we all lived in this neighborhood, and we were all very happy. And the whole neighborhood was filled with journalists. D.C. is the most well-scrutinized terrain in the world. There's journalists everywhere. You throw a rock and you'll hit a journalist. They're all over the place. You go to Kansas City, or you go to L.A., or you go to all of these other places in America. There's zero. There's no journalists. There's nobody watching. Nobody has any interest.
Hey, everybody, the next live Jimmy Dore show is August 16th. That's a Wednesday, new time, 9 p.m. 9 p.m. show, August 16th in Burbank, California. Get your tickets right there or at jimmydorcomedy.com.